massive applause and welcome Luke Dale.
That's a lot of peasants! Jesus Christ, be
Hello.
Stewart, it would be good if you had a microphone.
Oh, sorry.
Great. All right, so lovely to have you here. It's going to be a little bit schizophrenic to go from one coast to another. But I would like to start with the basics. So, you know, how did you get the audition for Kingdom Come Deliverance, the first one? So maybe Tom, let's start with you.
Yeah, for me, hello everyone, it's so nice to be here, and thank you for such a I will say as well, I'm going to repeat something that Luke said this morning, so again, forgive me if I'm repeating myself, but this is our first con on Czech soil, and obviously this game is like very much rooted in Czech history and Czech culture. Warhorse are an amazing Czech studio, and kind of wear their Czech pride, and with pride. So it's a really amazing thing for us to be here, and I feel very honoured to be facing such a full room of amazing, mostly Czech people. But to answer your question, so it came through the sort of relatively traditional channels, which is a thing called self-tapes, which have now become very common, partly because of COVID, where essentially you get sent a script, and often you don't know what that script is for necessarily. It might not even be from the project that you're auditioning for. And you get maybe a page or two of lines, and you send those in, and you hear back or you don't. And on this occasion, I heard back, and I was invited out to Prague, and this is the bit where it got much less usual, because I went to the studio and did a whole day of what essentially was like a workshop. It was kind of like a rehearsal meets audition, and we tried out loads of different accents, and we tried out various ways that he might move. We did some motion capture, so I was kind of in the performance capture suit on that day, which is really unusual. So that for like most auditions, if you might just get the job in TV at least off the self-tape, or you might go in and meet the director and the producer in person, but you wouldn't really be performing it, so to speak. But we essentially were, and that was it. And that was with the core crew, many of whom you know, Dan Barber and some of the creators, and the core team at Warhorse. And then they offered me the job, and here I am.
Great. So look, was it similar to
It was not, that sounds like the Hunger Games. They really put Tom through his paces. I was very lucky, because the part in this first game was much smaller. Initially, much like Tom, I did a self-tape that came through my agent, like any other job would. And I sent that tape off. I was reading, I think, for Henry initially. But then I think Dan Favre looked at it and went, he's not a Henry, he's a Hans Capon. So then, they flew me out. And, as a young actor, I was probably about 21 years old, and I just left drama school, and it was my first kind of foray into the world of acting. And to be getting on a flight to another country to do a formal audition for a production company was kind of a daunting and scary thing to do. And I, in my head, I was thinking, what if I don't get this job and I have to fly back to the UK? How depressing is that flight going to be? But luckily, I got there, and they asked me to just read a simple scene with the team. And at the end of reading that scene, Dan Varver reached out his hand across the table and said, "Welcome in. If you want to be here, you can." And I was like, hell yeah. So that's how it all initially came about, and thank God.
Yeah, definitely. So guys, I can imagine that your experience is a little bit different, because both of you live in Czech Republic. So how did you learn about Kingdom Come Deliverance?
Well, I was already kind of known entity, I guess, in the Czech acting scene. I've been in the Czech theatres, performing in English for about, I think it was about 8 years or something, with Jim, the actor who played Eric. We had our own company, so I guess we already were on the radar. And yeah, we were brought in, quite a bunch of us, and Daniel said something like, "Yeah, you look evil enough."
So where you casted, because you said that you had the company with the actor who plays Eric, so were you casted already as a duo?
I don't know, maybe. I think that's somewhere in their notes, but certainly the chemistry that I have with Jim is because we've worked together for a very, very long time.
Yeah. Stewart.
Well, in my case, you know, actors, they're not, the famous ones are rich, but most actors are jobbing actors and they don't have a lot of money and they go from job to job. And at the time I was on Facebook, the casting director knew me on Facebook and wrote to me and said that there was a casting. And I said, great, but send the details here on Facebook, don't send them to my phone, because it's broken and I can't afford a new one. And he sent them to the phone. And so I turned up with half of the information, which was, I think he sent on Facebook, yeah, it's on this day, at this time, but he sent the crucial piece of information, which was it wasn't at his office, which it usually would have been, it was at Warhorse, at their offices. So I turned up early, because I'm always early, and I waited and waited and waited, and no one showed up. I didn't have a phone, and I went home, and eventually I saw on Facebook that they were very angry with me, that they were all waiting for me, and so I didn't actually get into Kingdom Come until sometime after that, and they needed pickups, and I guess they'd forgotten that they were angry at me, and then I started doing voices and various things, but all the main roles have been cast, but if you know Vostatek, the gamekeeper,
Yes.
that's me, so...
So all four of you are British actors, and I wonder, like, when you read the script, I think the story is deeply Czech with humor and tone, and like, you know, when you read it, like, what was your reaction? Like, could you feel it from it? Like, was it different than the other scripts that you normally get?
I think it's a really good question, because those sort of cultural differences are really significant and kind of vital to this game. In terms of reading the script, it's worth saying that there is no entire script. So unlike a film or a TV show or a play, there's no sort of full entity to read and get to grips with at the beginning of a process like this. So what you're then relying on is the information that you're given by the creative team, which, you know, some of which was given to me on that day that I was describing. And I started to learn the language of what I now know to be something that's very rooted in Czech culture, what you're describing. But it wasn't that familiar to me. And so I found the humour I found really funny, and I was like, I think this is great. It's quite British actually in lots of ways. There's sort of slightly Monty Python-esque kookiness to it all, which I think is also very Czech. So I found it really funny, but I had no sense of where that would sit in the gaming landscape and how people might respond. So I was like, it's all things at once. It's like very much rooted in history. It's very enlightening in that respect. It's very sort of dark in places, but it's also very light and silly in other places. And I was like, will any of this read and will any of it carry? And the answer is yes, thankfully it did, because I think Dan and all the lead creators who put, Warhorse, who put this game together, absolutely did understand that in a way that I couldn't possibly have done as a British actor. And so they were sort of like the guiding star of the whole experience, and I was like, well, I will just follow them into Battle and elsewhere, knowing that they had this absolute conviction that this is a great idea and it will work, and they were right. But in the first instance, whether I personally knew whether any of that would work, no, not at all.
Well, I actually don't think it's too far a throw away from British humour. I mean, who's a big fan of Monty Python in the room?
Yay!
There you go. I think there's a lot of influences
Who's
of
that?
Python in
not?
Kingdom Come. And so for us, I think it was second nature. I don't know what you thought, you guys.
Well, I think Michael Palin actually said that Czech sense of humour is one of his favourite senses of humour. And I'd say the humour is extremely Python-esque. I guess some things that are a little bit different between British sense of humour and Czech sense of humour is Czech sense of humour can get quite a bit darker, as I know from living here. But when you take the darkest side of British humour, then you've pretty much got the same as Czech humour. But I felt at home with the script. Yeah, I think it's in turn funny and tragic, and it's really tragic comedy mixes between the two.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliantly done. I was very surprised that the game held so well to aspects of Czech history or Czechoslovak history, and so I was really impressed with that. Because most games take flights of fancy and so forth. So yeah, it was excellent.
Yeah. Okay, like next vlog, unfortunately, it's not going to be for you, Stewart, because it's more about motion capture. And you know, was it a first project that you've done motion capture, or have you tried it before?
It was the first, yeah. With the first game, it was purely motion capture, which is different from what they now call performance capture, which is what we did on the second game. For those that don't know the difference, it's just that with performance capture, they're capturing every element of your performance, so face as well as voice, as well as bodily movement. And on the first game, they didn't capture what we were doing with our faces, which is a bit of a shame. Because, you know, we're fairly expressive, aren't we, guys? Yeah, they were just capturing movement, and then they would add the facial expression afterwards, which I thought it sounded like I wouldn't want to be that developer, you know, working on that. It sounded a bit laborious, but yeah, it was the first time I'd ever worked on it, and it was quite a tricky thing to get to grips with because of the distraction of everything that you're dealing with. You know, with film and telly, you have a lot of aids, right? And even theatre, you have props, you have things to help you immerse yourself in the world, but with motion capture, you do not. You're in a very drab room, in this ridiculous lycra suit with these balls all over you, and it's very hard to envisage and picture yourself in an environment like, you know, you're wading through a lake, or you're on a mountain, or you're, you know, riding a horse, but you're actually sat on a very uncomfortable chair. Like, these are difficult things to actually overcome in your mind, but actually over time, it's like your imagination is a muscle, and the more I used it, and the more we used it, I think the better I was getting at convincing myself I was in these situations. So yeah, it was a challenge, but it's one that gets better.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting medium because it exists in this sweet spot between film and theatre. Right, you've seen the videos of us doing the motion capture, and it looks like we're in like a studio theatre. So I guess as theatre actors, we're acting in a theatre-y way. But you've got a camera like this attached to your face, so you're getting when you look at the game, you're getting the intimacy of like a close-up. So we're having to do the two things at the same time, right? We're having to give that intimate close-up, but also act for the stage.
I think what was really lovely about this game as well is that when I started it, I started only in theatre and then moved across to TV, and that's pretty much all I do now is TV. But I assumed there was some sort of radically different skill to performance capture or motion capture. And it turns out, at least in this game, there kind of isn't, because as Logan said, it's a fusion of both of those media. But all you really have to do, because this game is so rooted in a real world and real people in real challenging situations, it's actually incredibly naturalistic. So all you've got to do is just be and, like, you know, connect with the other person and make all the rest of the world in your mind's eye, which is very like theatre, and then the rest you get for free. So it wasn't some kind of massive revelation or some deep newfound skill. Actually, it was kind of just relying on the basics, the fundamental basics of acting in any other medium, and then kind of transferring them into that room.
Yeah, and do you remember any of like particular scene that was like really funny to shoot or maybe challenging?
I think smacking Henry on the bottom.
That was
pretty
challenging.
funny.
I normally charge for that service.
Extremely challenging for Tom to stay cool.
You weren't the only one to do that, I will say. There was like everyone started having a go at a certain point, and I was like, fine, in for a penny. But I think for, like, certainly any scenes of like physical intimacy or combat, because of the nature, because you are physically, you know, in contact. Very often, so you have these like Velcro small balls, which are like for the motion capture cameras to know where you are in the set. And they, obviously because they're Velcro, they come off quite easily. And while we're shooting, you can see a very rudimentary execution of what you're doing, so you can watch a sort of playback, if you like, of what you just did. But it's just figures, there's no detail there, obviously. And what would happen if you were doing an intimate scene or whatever it might be, is that those Velcro bits would come off and like land on the other person's body. So then when you looked at the screen, someone would just have like an arm sticking out their head, or like their leg would just completely vanish. And you like, so those were only ever funny and ridiculous.
For me, I thought one of the hardest scenes to film was the bathhouse scene in the first game. because I was obviously having to play blotto drunk, like off my face drunk, and I'm in a kind of bath, but of course, you know, in reality, I'm just in a kind of makeshift scaffolding, and I just kept asking myself, and I don't know if I even told you at the time, but I was like, is anyone buying this? Am I even remotely convincing in this? Like, and I remember Dan Vavra being like, look, more drunk. You're not drunk enough. It is 4 a.m, you have had many wines, you have drunk much Sylvan Red, you are nowhere near drunk enough. And I just kept hamming it up, and that's why you get that ridiculous performance that you've seen. So I found that really challenging at the time.
And maybe, because I don't know like how familiar are you with the final product and like with your performance, but I wonder like if you watched any cutscene with you and you compared it with what you had in your mind when you did the performance, and you were like, no, I wouldn't act it that way. Like it's not exactly what I wanted to.
I think the key revelation for me about the cutscenes was actually how cinematic they were and how kind of incredibly well executed. So that was described to us, and Walt was told us that was what they were aspiring to, and the kind of level of production that they were going to be able to execute, particularly in the second game. But it's impossible to understand that until you actually see it. So for me, I felt our performances were really helped and elevated by that. That there were certain sequences, like the sequence, you know, where after her. Henry and Hans are like helping each other along, and it's kind of like it's some way into case, not very far into KCD2, and it's essentially a recap for those that played the game 5 years ago.
Favourite bit.
It's so useful, and it's kind of a catch up for those that haven't played the game. So it's kind of serving a very necessary kind of narrative device, if you like. But it also needs a kind of very real dramatic reason to be there, otherwise there's no point. And what it means is that we're walking along, kind of staggering along, and through this landscape into which appear like charging horses and, you know, sort of kind of stream of consciousness. And they did, I remember being in the voiceover booth, doing the voiceover, and then explaining what it was going to look like, and being like, okay, that sounds amazing, I can just about imagine it. And then when I did see it, I was like, wow, that is insane. Like the production values were so far beyond what I thought was even possible in gaming. So that was, for me, the biggest revelation. And obviously in gaming, the journey between shooting that scene and seeing it was about 2.5 years, and then doing a bit of voiceover in between. So it's very long form in terms of your understanding of what it is you're making and what they can do.
I've never once been disappointed by, you know, seeing the end product after we've done it. I've never gone, oh, I think we did a better job than that. Like, they always make it just 10,000 times better than you imagine it's going to be. And they're also masters of pacing as well. So they take what you've done and they edit it in such a way, and the cinematography is such a way that it's like it's a really masterful cinematic scene that you're watching, and therefore you're able to take it in and enjoy it so much more. It's just such a joy to watch those cutscenes, I think.
They only ever make us look like better actors, basically, don't they? Which is fine, don't they?
Yeah, on that note, I mean, I didn't know that Ishvan Toth's costume was going to look so great. And it was going to be such a big upgrade from the first one.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And Stewart, I wonder, like, how do you approach voice acting? Like, do you have it the same way? It's like, okay, this is pretty much the same, or do you try to play more with your voice when it's just you and booth?
Oh, it's totally liberating. I've come to really prefer it to physical acting, because I can be any voice I want to be, and I've always been versatile in my ability to do impersonations and stuff as a child and stuff. I always did that. So as I got older, I stopped doing it, and you could put these things away, and then occasionally I'd get an acting job that would call for me to act in some way that was a different character from this guy, and sometimes a voice would come out, but with the voice acting, you can go nuts. But I was advised at the beginning, a couple of people said, don't go too heavy into the voices, because you're doing thousands of hours, and it can kill you. So anytime I went into the voice acting, they would say, or into the booth, they would say, okay, we've got a few shouting scenes to do, we'll keep them to the end, because you can just destroy your voice for the day.
Yeah.
So they would usually have me shouting and screaming and getting killed at the very end of the day.
Yeah, well, I can imagine that was, your case a lot, right? Like you did a lot of.
Yeah, very much the same thing. But they were always brilliant about that essentially, you know, the safety of your voice, but making your job easy and making sure you didn't lose your voice, and even things like. They were always up for making technical adjustments that made the job easier. So an obvious example of that in the voiceover booth is that they've now built this headset that has a mic built into it. So rather than a static mic, which often if you're playing an emotional scene and you're getting physical, you're kind of coming on and off the mic like that. It's like, obviously you can't use that because it's not consistent. So they realised that there are some scenes where you ideally would be standing up, even though it's only a small booth. And you might just need to get into your body more, but if you're next to a static mic, it's really hard to do that. So they literally went and built their own headset that has a mic built into it, so that we can all move around while we're doing it, and it just liberates you and makes your job so much easier. And that's sort of Warhorse to a T. They're always making our job as easy as it can be, so that we can be the best we can be for them, you know.
There's also the thing of, if any of you guys experienced this, where you go in and you're recording your voice, and then something else goes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Melaka.
Yeah, you get it. Yeah. So.
I started one character, which is about halfway through
That was
Kingdom Come
40.
1, and I started with a Southwest,
Laughing
a little bit
hard.
like you, and then I lost it, and it became Irish, Northern Irish, and then it wandered over into Yorkshire, and then later on they called me back in. It was for a DLC, and they're like, "Oh, we're bringing this character back." And I'm like, "What?" And I completely messed that up. And I explained the problem, and I said, "What do you want me to do?" And they went, "Just do it again." So I did my Celtic loop.
Very confused.
Yeah.
I would also like to know how is it when, because it's not only your voice and performance, but they also took your physical appearance and put it in the game. And I can imagine that must be quite jarring, because it is a completely different medium where like it is you but not entirely you, and like it is your performance but not entirely, and also the sheer amount of volume of the scenes that you have. Like, how was it for you?
Well, the biggest change is that people call me my lord all day long, which I'm perfectly fine with.
Of course we do.
No, I mean it's been great that they use the actors' faces. I mean, they didn't use all the actors' faces, but it's been really nice because it's nice to be recognised for the work you do. And I think for a long time they didn't do that, and a lot of actors almost were completely unrecognised for their work that they did in video games. So people just went for years and years being video game actors in some of the biggest games you've ever heard of, and you would walk past them in the street and not have a clue who they were. And maybe that actor would quite like that. Depends on the individual. But it's nice that people can recognise us for the work we've done, particularly on a game that we're so proud of. And I also love being called Lord, so keep it up, guys. I'm just kidding.
I think conversely, about something like 5% of the population of the Czech Republic have probably played this game. So that means 5% of the people in this country have killed me. So the other side of the coin.
What about you?
Well, I think people often ask that, and they say like, when you're playing the game, is it weird? And I think it's actually much weirder for the fans in the community, because particularly with the first game, people generally didn't know, because they would have no reason to, that a lot of these characters were based on the face of real people. So I do remember, and to Logan's point, obviously the game is much bigger in this country than anywhere else. So we'd be working in Prague, which is definitely where we get recognised the most. And I remember a couple of occasions where people would like hear my voice and sort of clock it in the street and think whatever, and then clock my face. And I think that would really throw them off, because they wouldn't necessarily know that it was based on a real person's face. So they just assumed that Henry had like time travelled to the streets of Prague, yeah. And because the game really didn't have the profile then that it has now. So I think that was incredibly weird. So it's much weirder for all of you, I think, than it probably is for us.
And I think for me, I'm that anonymous actor you mentioned, because I didn't really get copied into the game. I did some mocap, but most of the characters I did don't look anything like me, and Vostatek doesn't look anything like me. And the security guard here today wouldn't let me in. So,
but it's worth saying.
I'm not an anonymous actor.
It's worth saying this, Stuart. There is a small army of people like Stewart who actually have built the game and are sort of the engine of this game, because it's not a very big community, But there is a, and I've talked about them a lot, but I'm going to continue doing it. There's a small community of like English speaking and some non-English speaking, but some mostly native English speaking actors in Prague who are incredibly talented and sort of fill in the many gaps in this game. So I salute Stewart and his colleagues who you may not know.
Most of them are streaming the game now, so you can watch them streaming.
But Stewart, I want to know like how people react when you say you play Mustatek, because it is quite popular and
Yeah, they love it. They absolutely love it, and it's really nice because the character was really well written. He has this nice arc. You know, he has this. You understand him. You understand why he's a drunk. He's a comical character at the beginning, and then he's pathetic. It's a quite sad story, really. So I like that. I like the fact that it's got that depth, and people really seem to respond to it. So that's very nice.
Well, my next question is, you know, if any of your personalities got into the story itself, but now I'm not sure.
Logan.
The drunk Scotsman, yes. Sorry for that cliche, but it is true.
Classically evil Englishman.
But I mean, like you three played the same characters in the first game and then the second game. So I just wonder, because like the people from War Horrors, they knew you more after the first game. So could you recognize that there were some traits that were like, like interesting, that's a little bit me.
It's a really good question. I think your job is always for like somebody else to write a character, and if someone else has written it and you move towards it. So I think your job is absolutely to like go that way around, not the other way around. But inherently, there will always be bits of you that you bring to a character, whether you like it or not, because we're all human beings, and that sort of humanity is what you're keying into. So, but in terms of whether or not they brought elements of us, I don't think so. I think the characters were pretty clear in their mind's eye. And then, like I say, it was our job to move towards those characters. As far as Henry goes, I think the biggest challenge, what I love most about this job, and is unlike any other job that I've ever done or may ever do, is that, particularly with the second game, he is such a rich palette of possible Henrys. So he becomes this kind of everyman that has a really solid core, because it has to be consistent, but then he can become really whoever you want him to be. And so that is the single thing I love most about playing this character, and it's sort of a big responsibility, but also a big privilege, because of the pliable nature of his personality. That means you get to control and direct him, essentially. And so that core element changes for each player. So in that respect, I couldn't say that. I guess I brought different bits of me to different parts of those Henrys.
And that's why he's going to win Best Male Performer in a league. What was I going to say? Yes, I think a lot of my personality is in hands. I think that was very evident from the off, especially to the people at Warhorse, that when we would go out drinking, would all be like, "Look, you are just like Hans Capon. It is insane. It is like he is you. It is crazy." And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you guys. You cast the right guy, I guess. Yes, we love a drink. That's never going to be any different. And yeah, like I see a lot of myself in it, but I also see a lot of differences, and there are things that I really don't like about him. I like to think I'm better in some ways than him, but yeah, no, he's I've poured a lot of myself into him, and also when I play him, it's like I don't really have to fight to get anywhere. It's just there. It just comes out. I don't know. It's just so. I guess that's part and parcel of having played him for so long as well. You know, it's like a pair of old boots, really.
I would only say that. It's just that. Like I'm very familiar with your voice, and yeah, we've only met like twice, but we've acted together hundreds of times.
Oh my God!
So I've had you speaking to me, and I've spoken lines back and so forth. But what I've noticed is that your character seems very like you to me. You know?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I guess that question is much more appropriately answered by people like Stewart. You know, it's very difficult to say for yourself, but it's funny. I guess there's loads of qualities that we share, definitely, but there's loads that we absolutely don't. And within the spectrum of the possible Henrys in the KCD2, those are much further reaching, obviously. But definitely, there's a sort of, I hope, a sort of gentleness about him that I feel, and a sort of, you know, I've said this to people today, but I love that he could have just become this like all fighting alpha toxic man, and I'm not that. I'm not really interested in playing that. And, he's much more complex and rich and nuanced, because everyone is, like, even those people that present as that and pretend to be those big tough alpha dogs are incredibly complex and insecure and nuanced inside. So, and I think that's what Warhorse have done amazingly, is they've conceived this really gorgeous, brilliant, three-dimensional man, and I just had the privilege of playing him. But if there's a kind of gentleness about him, I think that I hope I share.
Seems like a nice guy.
Yeah, I'll take that. Thank you, Stewart.
We've only just met, but he's
Thank you. He's a bit goofy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously playing a bad guy, so I'm going to say that nothing of my personality. But what I did bring was, I've been playing evil characters for a long time. I think a good 12 years I've been playing bad guys of all sorts of different forms. So I did bring quite a few bad guys that I played a lot in the past to the character, because I think the character was written that way. For instance, Richard III, there's elements of that in Ishvantoth, and I also put something from Marat Sade, which is a play about the French Revolution, so there's a bit of like Jean-Paul Marat in there, and a few other characters. But yeah, I've been playing evil for a long time, so I guess you kind of lose yourself in it a little bit.
this Marat?
Yeah.
All right, I see there's a massive queue. I'm so sorry, guys. So please go ahead.
Hi again.
Hi.
So I have one question for Tom, one for Logan. It's okay. Luke has finished finally the second game by streaming. And Tom, what is your realistic estimate of when will you finish?
I think over a year. I mean, I'm taking my sweet time. One thing that a lot of people said to me, a lot of people you said to me when I started playing, was take the time, go into all those corners, enjoy this incredibly rich, far-reaching world that Warhorse created. So don't rush. I know when the game came out, a lot of people were kind of racing to get to the end just so they could get there first without any spoilers. But I didn't start playing it until about 2.5, 3 months after the release. So I'm really taking my time, and there's no reason for me to rush it. I'll only ever get to do it for the first time once. So I think it's going to take me more than a year.
And so the same question?
A little similar. If you plan to stream the second game after you finish the first?
Absolutely, yeah. And you're talking about Hot Dog Henry. The Hot Dog Henry. The definitive Henry Scanner. Yeah, I'm going to be taking my time with that as well. I'm going to be taking my time dissecting Henry, playing with my food. I would think I'm not going to finish KCD 1 until probably quite well after Christmas, and then I will start KCD 2 automatically with the same version, yes. And we'll see how that works.
All right, thank you.
Hello, I have a question for all of you. Let's stay with the first game, please. And what is your favorite scene from that first game that you find the most interesting in terms of its strong scene, or it's sad, or it's funny, somehow like that? Preferably from the point of the story, what you like.
I'll answer quick. The storming of Talmberg, the taking of Talmberg by Ishvantoth,
Of course.
I think is absolute cinema. When Divish is riding and it's cutting between, Ishvan slithering into the castle, they're like, no. That's brilliant. That's my favourite.
I think for me, at the risk of stating the obvious, to see in Skalitz when Henry's parents are killed, it's so much the engine of his whole story, what happens to his family, that kind of trauma that just drives him through both games. And that is the lighting of the fuse, if you like, of his entire life story, essentially. And I remember quite vividly that, the sort of trauma and emotion, if you like, of that scene. And that kind of stays with him throughout that entire journey. It's always the fire in his belly. And so for me as the actor, that's always been the fire in my belly, playing him. So that's the one that really sings out for me, KCD.
That was going to be mine. Thank you, Tom.
Sorry.
I love the scene with Godwin in the tower, and then Henry having to do a sermon very drunk,
that's
all of
the
that
best. I
sequence
love it.
was just genius and
Absolutely.
kind of really sums up the Czech humour and what makes this game so successful.
I can't really answer the question very, very well because I only have a kind of a strange overview of the game. I was never really playing the game or being in a particular scene, but just the general qualities that I see in the making of the game and the fact that we had to record a whole bunch of different reactions to each sequence. So that fascinates me. I just find the depth of it, you know, how the game is constructed to be really interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. I've been holding onto this question for quite a while. So, streamers, question: how has your view of the characters changed interacting with the fandom? Has there ever been a moment where somebody came up to you, talked about Henry, Hans, Istvan, and be like, oh, your own moment, oh, I never saw this character like that, because reading the lines, playing the character is set for you, is you have your own vision kinda, and has there ever been a moment where like, oh, I never saw it like that, the character I portrayed and now currently playing as a sword?
I think for me the biggest joy of streaming it is putting together the many pieces of the puzzle that were sort of like scattered when I was recording it, because obviously it's not done chronologically, and so there were loads of elements that were done wildly out of sequence, and so you, unlike you do that in TV, you shoot out of sequence, but certainly unlike a play which is chronological, and to some extent unlike a TV show which is finite and sort of there's a single version that will get aired. A game is like many iterations, and as I've said, this character is many iterations. So I think the joy of streaming is putting that together almost backwards for me, because I know a lot of the elements that exist. But with the technical support of having chat tell me, because you are all much more experienced, more talented gamers than I am, and I'm not, but I know the character really well, and so the fusion of those two things is really joyous. So I do rely on chat essentially to help me just not be a terrible gamer, but I have the benefit of knowing the character really well. But in terms of revelations, yeah, it's mostly like narrative, less so character revelations, but more like narrative ones. So putting those pieces together and being like, oh, I remember doing that scene, and I remember them explaining to me. Like, you know, the Bajaner's Hut being a really good example early on, where you're like, now I understand where that sits in the story and why. And you sort of can't possibly, nor is it necessary, to have that full narrative understanding when you're recording it. All you need on the day is, how am I feeling, who am I with, what do I want? And we'll always give you those things. But you don't need to know the kind of wild, overarching 200-hour story of it all.
So bearing in mind that you spend so much of the recording process out of sequence, it's very hard to give yourself like when you finish that process, it's very hard to be like, I have a full body sense of what this character's going to come across like in the game, because you just don't know. You don't know like how much time the player is going to spend with your character. Obviously, if you're Tom, it's different because you are him, so you spend all your time with him. But with Hans, I'll tell you now, I am always so surprised by how much the fans of the game like him. And I know that sounds mean towards him, to Pookie, but he's... I spent so much time being cantankerous and mean and stubborn and angry, and I was like, is anyone going to like him? You know, but they do. They somehow find a way, and there are redeeming qualities within him that you find slowly. And I think the worry for me with the first and the second game was each time I did it, I was like, I'm really worried no one's going to like this character. But you know, some people do, so that's good.
I can't really answer that because I'm not really at Istvan yet. I've only kind of saw his back in the streaming and off stage, so I don't know yet. But certainly looking at it from streaming it and like interacting with the audience at the same time while digging into the game, what I've been really enjoying is the books in the game. I've been reading all of the books. And it's really fascinating how much attention to detail there is in those books that expand the world. Because last time I was kind of like, books, you know, just read it for the skill points. But because the audience is there, now I'm reading it and I'm thinking about this stuff, and then seeing it in the game, and understanding that they've actually like interwoven the books with the game. It's beautiful. So I guess I'm really enjoying the game, really enjoying exploring it, and I'm really looking forward to Kingdom Come 2, but I'm not going to rush there.
And I've not streamed, but I may now stream.
Yeah, go for it.
Everyone should stream.
Hello, I have also a question about streaming. How do you view this medium, like entertainment medium yourself? Because you, Luke, Tom, and Logan are streaming, so but you can start. So how do you feel about the Twitch as a platform and you as a streamers?
I'm really enjoying it. I think it's really interesting medium where a bunch of different things are coming together at the same time. And my main experience is in directing theatre, so I'm kind of treating streaming a little bit like I would a theatre. Like when I pick a game, I'm picking a play, right? And I'm looking at the characters that we're going to look at, and I'm kind of playing the character because it's a first-person thing. So I'm looking at that as an acting process, but then I'm stepping outside the character and assessing it, you know, as objectively, which is more like a director. And then I'm interacting with the audience as well, so there's a kind of interactive theatre element to it. So all of these kind of theatre mediums I'm trying to bring together in the stream. But I'm very excited because it's, it seems like there's lots and lots of opportunities there and things to discover that haven't been discovered yet. So,
for me, it's been a real revelation because it's not a landscape that I was that familiar with. But I thought really long and hard about how I was going to play this game, which I would only ever get to do once for the first time. And eventually I decided, first I was like, I'm just going to do it on my own, privately, and have all those amazing memories. But then I thought there's two problems with that. One is I can't share it with anyone, but secondly, my technical skill is almost non-existent. So actually the joy of like coming back into game, I did game a lot when I was much younger, but I've never played a big open world RPG of this complexity ever. And so what I love about it is that I have the benefit of chat to help me, and you know, I'm quite impatient. And so I realise it's basically cheating, but I don't care because it's fun. and it also means that then as a stream it becomes more interactive because I actually need and want that help. And most of the people that follow my stream have finished the game, know the game really well, are very experienced, brilliant, funny, intelligent gamers. So it's kind of, for me, that's a really lovely fusion, and it's making me enjoy the game much more because when I get stuck, they unstick me, and then I can carry on.
Streaming this game has been absolutely life-changing for me. It really has changed everything. And also my relationship to streaming and being a streamer has changed. Because I think in the beginning, because I started streaming, you know, week one. I've been streaming like years before that to like 10 people, but then obviously in the week that the game came out, I was getting, I think at the peak, about 20,000 people at any given moment, like average viewership. That was the peak, and it was crazy. And I think there was an element of performance that I was doing, and I was definitely playing up to the character, and I was even wearing Hans's clothes, and I was getting drunk on stream, and it was all a bit much, right? I think it was fun to watch, probably, but actually my relationship to streaming has changed drastically since then. So it's been 9 months since then, and I think these days I'm a much better streamer. I look back on the early streams I did, and I'm like, bloody, calm down, like you're very loud. And now I'm much more interested in my relationship with the people watching me rather than giving everybody a show. I think you should strive to be as entertaining as you can be, but also I think it's about your relationship to the people that are taking their time to watch you and why are they doing that, and trying to respond to them in a meaningful way and not kind of show off, and just be with them and enjoy the game. And I'm much more calm, I think is what I'm trying to say, and I'm enjoying it much more now than I ever have, and it just gets better and better every day. So thank you anyone that watches, by the way.
Yay! I love
Did you say you can get drunk on streams?
I did.
I'm interested.
It was a bad idea.
Good evening. My question is, this question has been asked to the Czech voice actor of Henry and Toby, so I think it's only fair to ask you, what is your favorite romance option and why is it hands-free?
It was us.
It's obviously hands-free. It always will be. And, you know, I talk about this a lot. And the reason it is because if you think about it, it goes right back to the beginning of the first game. And that's a long burn. That's a slow burn. And when do you get that really in any other game or any other experience where you can slowly build a relationship with this like little frisson here and there? It's like, which is just like in real life, you know, if you've ever been in a relationship that took forever to build and like there were little moments along the way, you're like, oh, he touched my hand, did he mean to? Oh. And that's that payoff that you get. What is now 9 years later of being able to romance him, and with all that pressure and the risk and the excitement, but also like, you know, you might die the next day, and like it's just the best option.
That's right.
It is. Okay.
It is the best.
I haven't got there yet in my stream, and I don't know yet which way I'll go, but what I do love about it, right from the very moment that it was put on the table, which was where we sat and had a long briefing before we did anything on KCD2, and lots of things were mentioned in terms of how it's going to be different, and that was one of the things that was mentioned. And I was really pleasantly surprised because I didn't think that was a road that they would explore. I know it was lobbied for by a lot of fans, but what it's meant is that, and you can see this by looking around this room, it's just made that the whole game's fan base is a much broader church. People feel more welcome and included for all sorts of reasons, not just in the literal sense of that relationship, but there's just a much broader palette of people. And for that, I you know, it's not only through that romance, but that is a big part of the engine of it, I think. And so for that, I think it's really amazing that it exists and you have the option to do that if that's what you want to do.
I think hands-free is great because if you follow the hands-free route, you can understand and enjoy hysteric more.
Thank you.
Just like, you know, we have 7 minutes, and the 7 minutes is like, we really have to go after 7 minutes, so like, just keep that in mind, everyone. Yeah, okay.
Hi, so I have a silly question. If you went to a bar to have a drink, just imagine everyone from KCD. Who would you go with and why?
Try Deva.
I'd go with Vostatek.
Ruining history.
He knows his way around the bar.
Who would I hang out with? Radzig and Stephanie.
Wow, classic.
Ignatius. If you know, you know.
Godwin and Capon at the same time. Because I don't think I'd survive it.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really nice. Nice
So
question.
this might be some kind of follow-up question. Aside from Hans, Henry, and Istvan, who is your favorite character?
I really love Teresa, and I really love Victoria that plays Teresa, and I think she, you know, she's one of the more progressive characters I think in the first game. But I also, you know, yes, she's Henry's anchor and all those things, but objectively, I just think she's beautifully written, she's beautifully played, I think, by Victoria. And there's just something about that character that I think is really stunning and unusual and unique. So that's my answer.
Yeah, I agree. It's a wonderful example. I said this the other night on stream, but it's a great example of a heroine that, in their time, you know, is such a strong, wonderful character without you forcing any agenda down the audience's throat. She is what she is, but she's so compelling, smart, brave, strong, like in all the best ways. But it doesn't feel forced or you know, like you're being preached at. It just works and it's believable. And she's full of she's so righteous in the best way. So yeah, she's mine. Yeah.
Because we're conscious of time, we'll go Lady Stephanie, of course, then Fritz. And then Michael Horse.
7 minutes. Vostatek again.
Hi, hello. My question is, have the characters changed you or given you something new in your everyday life?
Well, okay, very quickly, I just really enjoyed working with the engineers. I don't know if that's the right term, but the guys and gals and the director who I meet when I go in, and they handle the sound because they're in my ear and telling me, giving me notes and various things. We have a lot of fun, and they're a lot of nice people. Yeah.
This is going to sound crazy, but I really have become more audentes fortuna juvat in my everyday life ever since this game came out. And I don't know why I've chosen to do that, but it's working. And people tell me every day now that I've inspired them to be more like that. And so, yes, for that reason, he has definitely influenced me big time.
It's amazing, keep it up.
I will.
I can't say so much if the character has, but definitely the experience of playing one character for 10 years, and threefold experience, I suppose. One is with Warhorse and the devs, like you were saying, who are an amazing group of people, and the roots of those friendships go very, very deep. Creative working relationship as well as friendships. And the second one is the actors. It's a really amazing group of people, a really talented group of people with whom I've worked for longer than I've worked on anything else. And the third one is the community, which the other work I do, the interactivity and the relationships with the community doesn't exist in the same way, and that's not something I anticipated. And so that has absolutely changed me. Those three things, which are very unlike anything else I've had in my working life, have definitely enriched me and opened my eyes. And people say, when they come to the table, tell me very personal stories about how this game has influenced them, or the time of life that they met the game and what it might have done for them. And that is incredibly moving. That's not something that's happened to me before. So that's changed me for sure.
It's too complicated for 30 seconds. I'm sorry. Find me after. I'll give you a proper answer.
All right, yeah, guys, we have 2.5 minutes, so it's getting critical.
Thank you. I'm going to be as quick as possible. Okay, I have a question for all of you. Do you know any of the Czech actors in person?
I know Richard Wagner, and I think he's awesome.
Okay, yeah, and for example, the one that plays Sigismund? I'm asking for a friend, actually. Yeah.
I don't, I'm afraid.
I've never had the pleasure, unfortunately. No.
I don't know if I know any, but I know some Czech actors, but I just don't know who's in the game. So.
Yeah. Okay, and one really brief question for Luke. What's a game you would really like to play, in the future? Do you have...
A game I'd like to play in the future? Yeah. Oh, there's so many.
Cyberpunk.
Yeah. I'm a big fan. It's a completely departure from Kingdom Come, but I really used to love Gears of War when I was a kid, when I was younger, and they've just brought out 2 games this year, that franchise, and I'm very excited to play those games. They've done a remastering of the original, and then there's a sequel in the series. And I love Gears of War. Is there any Gears of War fans in the room? Yeah. So it's a shooter and it's really random, but I absolutely love it. So that's what I would like to play next year. Thank you.
Great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Hello, just a quick question. Which village is better, Hillier or Takov?
Oh wow! Fighting question.
Yeah.
I spent more time in Takov, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. But which is better, Hillier or Takov? I'm going to say taco because I spent more time there.
I like tacos, so I would say tacos.
Can I make a very quick request before we wrap up?
Yes.
When we finish, can we just stand at the front and get a photo of you all? Because you're so awesome, it's so lovely to incredibly
This is the biggest audience we've ever had.
Is that alright? I'll let you wrap up. Forgive me for
go
stealing
for
your
it.
thunder.
Yeah.
But before we go, can we do that?
Yeah, let's do it
Should we
now.
do that?
Yeah.